I think where I started really following your channel was when you bought the Pimp My Ride van.
Yeah.
That was an interesting one. How do you find that car to begin with? It's such like a well-known kind of famous car selling for so cheap. It was, I believe you bought it for $800.
So it's, I don't know, maybe it's kind of like the supermodel that's in a bar. You assume everybody's hitting on her, but nobody's hitting on her because everybody else thinks that even though it's not really a supermodel in a bar, it was a old car in a junkyard. So you have this Pimp My Ride minivan that's like pink and purple and whatever. And I saw this on a Craigslist ad, and it was up in Boston or Rhode Island or something like that. It was up for sale for $850. And this thing needed all the work in the world, but it said this was on Pimp My Ride. And I mean, I verified it. It's like that was the van. And I gave them a call and I said, hey, is this still available? They said, yeah, I can wire you money right now and I'll have a truck come pick it up. If I just lost my money, that would have been fine. Like for the story, if they would have just like taken my $850, I would have been okay with that, like as just a transaction, just to make sure that I had that car. Because when it came here, it was very clear that like everything needed refurbishment. And that means that, we could solve all these really, kind of funky issues. So over the course of like a week or two, we got everything working back in that car. It had a disco floor, it had 9 screens, had 3 screens that went kind of like popped down from the ceiling. It had a bunch of subwoofers in the back, had a jewelry making station, and the seats were made of denim. It had like a footrest that was also a giant monitor, but they didn't have like LCD screens. They had like plasma screens that were super heavy. So this thing needed like a big like actuator to move it. That series on my channel did something like 22, 23 million views. So it was like #1 on trending, and it was doing something like 400,000 views an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. I never ever thought, and it was like an $850 van.
Best ROI car right there.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I think that car, that van made me like 250 grand, like off those videos.
It's half of a P1.
Oh yeah. Well, half of that P1. Yeah.
Half of a salvage P1.
Yeah,
sure.
Or a really, really nice house.
Yeah, that's how much do you think they spent on Pimp My Ride to do that car back in the day?
They did those cars in like a month or two. I would wager they probably put in 10 grand of like work, and they got all the stuff for free anyway. But like labor wise, I'd say probably like maybe 10 grand. They got some crappy paint on there. The actual work that they did, credit where credit is due, was good. They wired everything properly. They did things where, they had, like, if they had to split a signal, they would give it power, so it wouldn't degrade the signal, because it was all RCAs back then. So yeah, it was actually, well wired, but it just didn't stand the test of time.
Yeah. Did you end up selling that?
No. So I ended up giving it to a museum as tax write-off. But the museum, I might be getting it back. I talked to the museum, and we might be doing something with them. So it's a Peterson Automotive Museum in LA.
Are you serious?
So it's over there now, but I might be getting it back as a package deal with something else that we might be working on.
Wow.
So yeah.
So how does it work if you donate a car to the Peterson Museum?
Basically, they give you a gift of deed, or a deed of gift or something like that. And you sign over the car and everything to them. Since they're a nonprofit organization, you can essentially just write it off like you were to give it a Cars for Kids or something. So I had an appraisal of this as a certain amount, like say 100 grand or whatever. So like you can essentially write that off.
Yeah. Interesting. And how do they value a car? Like, it's like Pimp My Ride.
So they didn't do the appraisal. So I did I had somebody else do an appraisal. Yeah. So you need like a third party to do an appraisal. Yeah. But
priceless.
Yeah, it's priceless.
Millions of dollars.
But you can. It's I mean, I could have said $3 million. Why not? Don't pay taxes anymore.
Yeah.
I think like realistically with the show and with the amount of YouTube views and all that stuff, and the fact that we drove across country, and it's been on other channels and whatever, and like you can make the case that this is worth this amount of money, just in terms of like sentimental value.
I agree with that.